The spark that ignited the South Tyneside music scene back in the 1960s was the launch of the Cellar Club by local businessman Stan Henry.
And I used to run a school of dancing with my mother in Beach Road.
There was 2 rooms knocked into one. It was a huge space, and that was the reception area with a reception desk and a switchboard, and I was based in there.
And if I remember right, I got a job collecting glasses.
I came as a secretary initially.
We wanted to expand our facilities because it was limited in size. So we went to the local authorities and they gave us a site which we built the Cellar Club on in Thomas Street.
The Cellar Club was my second home, you know, every night went down to the Cellar Club.
We had the Cream, and Jimi Hendrix was there.
The live music was a massive part of our youth.
I saw Jimi Hendrix there, we saw the Cream there.
It opened with Cream, who charged 21 shillings at the door.
I was walking down Fowler Street and this van pulled up and this bloke says, you know, where's the Cellar Club? I thought, it's him, it's Eric Clapton. On Fowler Street in a van.
My road to Damascus experience was seeing Jimi Hendrix at the Cellar Club in South Shields. We thought he better be good because it was 10 bob to see him, but he was absolutely amazing.
Most musicians are inspired by some of the great performers that they saw in their youth. The list can be endless.
I was seeing bands when I was like 10, you know, and at that time to go to the City Hall and see a band at 10, you're just blown away.
When you see a band, you think, God, that's full on, that's a band, that's like 5 or 4 musicians banging it out on a stage.
XTC, Enduring the Blockheads, that was the stuff that really made me sit up and listen.
My first gig was the Buzzcocks in 1979.
Lou Reed, maybe it's the Doors, Iggy Pop, that's where I was at the time.
The first band I seen was The Damned at the City Hall supporting T-Rex. Lad took us along, really young like, and that was it for me, hooked from them.
One of my favourite bands was Kiss, and they were a huge influence. It was early 80s, so I was very heavily into AC/DC. That was what I listened to.
It was essentially sort of Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple and Black Sabbath.
When I was 14, I got some money for my birthday and I ended up buying a Ted Nugent ticket.
I remember these tickets going to see Yes at Wembley Empire Pool in London and sleeping in a hamburger van for 4 days.
Ted Nugent's on stage, the feedback's happening, he's leaping on the amps, screaming his head off.
Richie Blackmore's Rainbow at the City Hall in '76 first tour knocked me head off.
When I went to see Deep Purple that night at the City Hall, all I ever wanted to do from there on was really be involved in music.
Went to see them again in '77, that was when I made the decision. I wished and I'd love to be able to sing like that guy.
I had sort of, you know, a one-track mind in terms of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be involved in. And it was basically music, music, music.
Everything I breathed, lived and wanted to touch or make or do, had to do something with this band.
The inspiration then creates the urge to want to learn how to play a musical instrument and hopefully emulate their musical heroes.
A neighbour of mine, a guy called Brian Smith, who had a bass guitar, used to listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Atomic Rooster.
My first inspiration was my dad, who was a guitarist in the 60s.
Around about the age of 14, my dad was a singer in the social clubs around the northeast. So that's where I basically started thinking about playing music, started playing guitar.
Well, when I was about 10, in the backyards of John Williamson Street, playing with knitting needles in a dish.
The first drum kit I had was a Frankenstein drum kit from the West Park. Didn't have any stands to speak of. The bass pedal broke after a couple of weeks, so for about a year I played drums without a bass pedal.
I don't know why I ever got into playing. I wasn't musical at school.
I was forever, and I mean forever, bashing away on my legs to everything. And so many people said to us, you know, you should be a drummer.
After I was learning the bass guitar, I decided to look around on the music boards to see if we can get a band together.
And then just buying a cheap bass and just rehearsing and plugging away in tunes.
My brother happened to have a guitar or a pinch to his room, started to try a little bit, oh God, I can play this. He on one string, eventually it leads to a band, you know, 4 lads getting together, which we did.
All we wanted to do was just, we wanted to do that, we wanted to be in a band.
The next stage is meeting up with like-minded people and going on to actually being in a band.
I formed a band with Barry Hopper and we started rehearsing in a garage.
And we used to rehearse at Trinity House Youth Club.
Tiny Nook Youth Club, as was. In the weights room, we used to rehearse in the back of there.
We used to rehearse in one of my mates' bedrooms when his mum and dad went out.
And we were right into free then. So we started learning this, all free tracks.
We had a little covers band which we used to just practice in St Peter's Youth Club.
When was it? Redwell School, I think it was, Redwell School. And started playing these tunes, and I couldn't hear a single word what I was going on about.
After a few rehearsals and word getting round, especially with the kids in the youth club of the same age, it was like, oh, they're in a band.
All of a sudden, I'm in a band. I come running all the way back home and, Mum, I'm in a band, I'm in a band.
There's a lot of other bands around. At the time they were older than us, Raw Spirit.
Bullfrog and Circus, John Miles set. There was a bunch of friends of mine who had a band. They were called Shelter.
I joined a band called West One.
I remember West One.
The local bands.
And we were managed by I think it was Eve Collins there.
John Miles.
The Stormies, Beckett.
Alan Craig and Arthur Ram, great player Arthur Ram, came to my house one day and said, we're forming a band, would you like to form a band?
We found rehearsal studios, we started to do it 2 and 3 times a week.
They were called the Band Obelisk, and we'd looked about getting a gig, and we found a place at Talbot Road Youth Club.
And then we used to play the schools, Stanhope Road School, we played Dean Road School.
I mean, our mistake was we rehearsed too much. We spent so much time in the rehearsal room to fine-tune our act. We never really got out.
We used to play the Hunter, and in fact we liked the Hunter that much, we once played it about 10 times in the same gig.
There was also the alternative scene, where humour, poetry and zaniness were mixed into the new music revolution of the 1970s.
Wavis had many adventures.
As a kid, I'd been to his gigs at Bonebroke Hall and St Aidan's Church up near the Low Top. Used to have some strange sort of admission fees. Used to be slices of bread or boiled eggs.
The hard-boiled eggs, the slice of bread and the sticks of celery.
If it was a hard-boiled egg, you wouldn't let you in with a soft-boiled egg. And you could even be caught with a forgery. If the entry fee was a white slice of bread, you'd get wrong for bringing a brown bread, you wouldn't get in. When he was making the album Anna Ford's Bum, we decided to give it a go of going down to ITN in London to try and meet up with Anna Ford. And amazingly enough, we'd stood around probably less than an hour before Anna Ford herself just walked straight out of the steps of ITN. She was approached by a man with an 18-inch polystyrene nose attached to his face. She stood there, she waited while he got down on one knee and proposed marriage. And we took a couple of photographs to prove that, made the national newspapers. After that, I think he started to get a bit more famous. He managed to make the Tube and establish 1 or 2 characters.
I remember we were driving through London in the Wavis mobile. Somebody sprayed a massive long nose along the length of the car.
We'd got ourselves a bit lost and headed off down a dead end.
You could see we were from out the area because of the licence plate on a car.
And we'd realised that there was a car following us, and they must have, I thought that they were just going to come past, so I was waving them on.
All of a sudden there was screeching of tyres, and
turned out to be the flying squad. And
car pulls up.
And it was just like Regan and Carter on the telly.
It was the Sweeney actually.
And they started to search under the seats and asked me to get out and open up the boot.
When I used to leave the area, I always used to have masks and stuff like that. And
Wavis had a chair leg wrapped in Christmas wrapping paper.
But he said, is it alright, we searched the back of the car.
Looked in the boot, took one look at all the things that were in there and started saying, sticks and masks, son, you could get 15 years for this.
I think I said the baseball bats were a Christmas present for my mother.
But very shortly after he was harassing me at the boot of the car, Wavis and another lad who were in the back seat donned their 18-inch polystyrene conchs and stuck their heads out the back window and said, "Can you tell us what's wrong, officer?" At which stage I think he decided that we were pretty much crazy and there was no point in trying to pursue enquiries.
Good plan. Right, you need to switch it off now.
The beginnings of any band's career will date back to their first gigs, often played in local pubs, clubs and youth centres.
First gig we did was at Simonside Youth Centre.
We had to do clubs though at first because we all turned professional we're going to set the rock world alight, you know.
And we started playing the clubs when we were barely old enough to kind of really go into them.
We played all around the country. At that time the clubs were thriving. We spent a lot of time in Scotland.
You know, you were at work till something like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30, having to get home very quickly, get cleaned up, in the van, and off to somewhere like West Cornforth or Shildon or Spennymoor, or if you were lucky, Sunderland, which was closer.
Just to drive to a club, put the gear in the club, do the performance, leave the gear in the club overnight and sleep in the van through the night, which was really hot in the summer and absolutely freezing cold in the winter. So cold, I remember waking up one morning, someone sleeping in the passenger seat and his forehead had frozen to the window and we had to peel him off in the morning when we woke up.
There used to be a youth club called St Hilda's, and bands used to play there.
The first bands that I seen, and obviously my favourite band was Hellenbach.
Then we had our first gig as Hellenbach at St Hilda's Youth Club.
They were a brilliant local band.
We started getting all things together, rehearsals and telling people, as you do, flyers. Everything was okay, rehearsals were great, everything was magic until it got to the night of the gig and there was a queue from St Hilda's Youth Club all the way around the market. It looked at us.
We actually promoted a couple of our own gigs locally at Bolden Lane, at the community centre in Bolden Lane.
What happened was we started doing some gigs with a band called Mithra.
And we actually invited Hellenbach to support us on that.
And we blew them off every time, may I add.
I mean, Hellenbach got a reasonable reaction.
It was incredible, but
when Mithra walked on stage, the place just erupted, really, because it was Mithra that they were there to see.
We definitely blew them off. Some of the shows that we did at that time are some of the best shows that, as far as I'm concerned, that happened in Newcastle at the time. We played with Raven at the Hofbräu House. We played with Raven at the Mayfair. I mean, we played the Mayfair ourselves. Sunderland, Mecca. And I mean, these places were going crazy.
We started gigging in the neighbourhood with this band Satan. Some of the venues that other bands were supporting at, we went straight in there, curiously, as headliners, and even we weren't sure why we were supposed to be there, but we got the gigs. Mayfair, Newcastle, Mayfair, Sunderland. The fact I was in Satan sort of tickled me a little bit now, so I got all my black gear out and stuff and started giving it the old upside down crosses and stuff.
Yeah, we played the Cyprus, the pubs in Shields. The first major one was Tiffany's, that was a showcase. That's where we got the record deal. And we played with Jane Sling, who were an up and coming band at the time, around the northeast really. We just liked gigging that much, we realised we wanted to do it more and more.
How you doing?
You're playing the amphitheatre down Shields.
Let's see your hands in the air, come on!
In front of, can I say, probably one of the biggest crowds that's been down there. Council wouldn't give us the lights, so it was an absolute disaster halfway through the gig because it was dark. And no one could see you.
We're going into the city.
But prior to that, that gig is quite like light, it's bright. Everyone was like, oh yeah, and we're doing songs like Nostradamus, Punch It Out and all that. And I just think we had a little bit of catchiness about them, and people were getting drawn into them, and the fireworks, and we had sort of like, you know, the stage was pretty good at that time.
Come on!
Well, I mean, Joe's like the unpaid roadie, but he's the roadie you'd just like, he's just unbelievable what effort he's putting in for now, you know. And I get blown up at the gig, you know. And I remember going into the Rattler after it, and he was standing there, and he had, his coat was burnt, the whole top of it was fringed up. He had no eyebrows left or anything. Like when you see on the Pink Panther.
Oh, when it goes up.
Aye, like proper like cruise but it's all made up, isn't it? It's all sketch work and all that. That was what it was like.
By the prophet!
There was plenty of bands who were doing original music at the time that could have gotten further.
Things like playing Middlesbrough at Town Hall, which was probably the biggest gig I'd done, and you feel cool as out because you're actually doing something like the City Hall, you know. And the sound guy was going, give us 50 quid and I'll get you a good sound. I was like, well, I haven't got 50 quid, man. It's took our bus fare to get up to Middlesbrough, man.
I did an audition for the producer of The Tube. And The Tube at the time was the music show. It was all live, everybody played live on it. It was the very last edition of The Tube. And we were given a place on that, and it was all set up. We were given our times and dates to go and do it. But a few days leading up to the recording of the show, we were told that because it was the last show, Paul McCartney had decided he would like to appear on the show. So we were dropped out of the show, and Paul McCartney took our place.
The punk scene brought with it a DIY attitude of going out there and doing it yourself.
The punk thing was, you know, pretty fundamental. It was totally different.
Then the punk scene started, and that changed things for me. Instead of being somebody who was an observer in music, all of a sudden I thought, well, I can do it.
I suppose when the punk thing came along, it made it easier for everybody. I thought I could just get up and play anything with a couple of chords or make a noise on the drums. It was generally enough to get you going in a band.
Anybody could have shot at Vietnam, and everybody did it, didn't it? Everybody had a go at having a go at a punk band, like.
Self-promoted gigs, fanzine publications and music videos could be made locally.
We met Gary, what, late 70s?
Late 70s, yeah.
And he's a promoter.
It basically written by myself. Will took it away, typed it up, set it all out. Then it was actually printed at the police station when they were out on a call on the fiddle, because his grandma was a secretary at Keppel Street Police Station. So whenever no one was there, we were running photocopies off of the fanzine at the police station. That's where it was all printed at, free of charge.
Played the station loads of times, and loads of bands who are decent bands, Conflict, Icons of Filth. It started off actually in Hebburn, Miss King's nightclub in Hebburn, and it was a cellar. I remember, now we thought, well, the business here were rubbish, like, after you, and we'd done the first gig, and we jumped round over and pulled the leads up the amps, and the PA caught on fire. And the singer over and blew it out. His amp was on fire. He actually blew the amp out, you know. Obviously, we had to finish it within about 3 songs. Like, it was an absolute disaster. We thought, well, maybe this is a bit harder than we thought it would be. Like, but the singer, the original singer, the Fiend Kev, they said he was going to get Mohican, so we said we're going to do it for him. Like, so we cut this Mohican for him, and it started there. Went around the sale yard. So it's pretty hard to cut a Mohican, and we didn't realise it. Went around with that, like, so it looked rubbish. So we painted it with yellow gloss paint.
It was just, I guess, we wanted to be heard and jump up and down and say, I'm here, I exist. Definitely just pushing things to the alternative, trying to come up with something different.
What the influence we had on each other, what came out, came out. It was a bit off the wall, it could be a bit weird, but there wasn't much else like it. When you work with people who can be so productive and just come up with ideas, when you bounce off each other, that's the best part of the music. You don't have to sit for years and thinking, am I good enough? You just go out there. If they like it, they like it. If they don't like it, they don't come see you.
The very first gig we played in front of 6 people. And then the next gig we played in front of 12. So we thought we'd really doubled up.
Couldn't play guitar, at least I couldn't play very well, couldn't play drums. So I started throwing words together.
This one's called the Independent Republic of Tyne and Wear.
Number of influences. I mean, there was, as I say, the John Cooper Clarke, Injury in the Blockheads, the humour that was in what they were doing.
Another 4 years of a democratically elected dictator as the sun sets on the yards and poverty's at large. The red flag flies from the end of Shields Pier and the People's Republic of Tyne and Wear.
I was also very much influenced by the 80s were middle of the Thatcher regime, pits were closing, industry was shutting down, the yards were going.
The Iron Woman ruling the river of ships and coal while the workforce live off the dole. Watch what they once knew disappear in the Independent Republic of Tyne and Wear. Like one great house of cards, forgotten workers, pits and yards. No one sheds a tear except the people of the People's Republic of Tyne and Wear.
We discovered a cine camera. It just popped out of the blue.
And we shot the videos ourselves on as cheap as possible.
And only had 4 minutes of film in them days, you know. So we bought a couple of rolls of film.
I think the first video cost 24 quid.
Used it, did animation, and just let our imagination rip. You can't make them like that anymore. Like, you know. I was going to show one of them.
Just hold me, hold me, hold me, hold me tonight. Just hold me for the rest of my life. Just hold me, hold me, hold me, hold me tonight. Just hold me for the rest of my life.
When the songs were written and gigged, the next step was to get them recorded. Local recording studios made demo tapes and self-financed EPs a much more viable option.
I think lots of bands at the time used to record demos and post them off to every record company you could think of. I think they were very rarely listened to.
And I didn't really know where to take it next. I was waiting for somebody to come knocking on the door and say, great stuff lads, here's a contract. And I thought that's all you had to do.
Obviously the record deal is the holy grail. I spent 4 days in Guardian Studios in Pity Me and spent 400 quid for 4 days, which was a fortune. In those days I was only getting 25 quid a week. And come out with 2 really good prog tracks, which I don't think actually got the band anywhere. But there's plenty of bands got piles of "We regret to inform you" letters.
Desert Sounds was the first, I think the first tape we'd done. But you know what it is, I was such a perfectionist that I wouldn't send a photo away to a record company because I didn't think I looked right. I wouldn't send a demo tape I'd just done because I didn't think it quite sounded right. I didn't want the letter back going, we don't want this, you know.
We did a couple of demos. The very first one we did was in Felon at Desert Sounds. And the sound was very raw and very heavy. It came out great. The second demo we did was in July '87, and we did that at Baker Street Studios where we used to rehearse. very high-tech studio in a local sense anyway, but we were told it would be right in the mix.
We tried to do a single and we put a 4-track EP together for Guardian. We put it out and everybody bought it. And basically that led we into recording at Neat Records. We got a deal with Neat Records to go and record our first album. Once we recorded the album, which is, may I say, a very, very proud moment in my life. Listening back at the playback of thinking that that's your music, your songs, it's an incredible feeling. I remember taking it into work and showing me bosses and all my workmates, and I was thinking, well, hopefully this might be me leaving the shipyards. And I remember reading the Kerrang and the sounds in the toilet of Wallsend Slipway, 5-star reviews. And I'm sitting on the toilet reading these reviews thinking, this is the last time I'll be in a shipyard.
Originally it was just called Slut, and then it got catalogued as Model Youth. When we went into the studio, we didn't do the whole catalogue. We'd done most of the tracks that was listed for the album, and the demo ones got taken off the reel and put onto the album reel. So basically what you've got, talk us through it. Well, that's the album that came out on Neat Records. Yeah. Catalogue number 1043, pressed in France. The guitar player, Randy Preston. Vocalist, JC. I haven't a clue who he is. He may be sitting next to us.
I haven't a clue.
Yeah. And that used to be me.
Does it?
Mithra were the first sort of local heavy metal band to go to Guardian. The quality of the recording, and I think other local bands, they heard that, you know, and they'd seen what Mithra had achieved in that particular recording studio in Durham in one 12-hour session, and the product we came out with in terms of those 4 tracks, which were our first EP, are just incredible. I mean, it got fantastic press right across the country, and I think there was something like 5,000 records sold there within days. So then there was another pressing done of 15,000, and those were sold within 3 weeks across the country.
At the time we wanted, because we had our own material, we were trying to get money together to get into the studios and record it. The studios was in a place just outside Durham called Pity Me, Guardian Studios, run by a man called Terry Gavigan, where we recorded the EP first, 4-track EP. That was so nerve-wracking at the time because we were green as grass. It really was great. I mean, you know, you'd like being brought up and you bought singles and bought albums, and now suddenly you've got one of your own. Yeah, it's still one of the proudest things I've ever done, you know.
One of the things that came out of the blue was a call, or the big knock if you want to put it that way, from a fella who said, oh, I've got a recording studio and we can do some business for you. And strangely enough, it was the same bloke who'd been in touch with Mithra and sorted something out with them. At the end of it all, out came this amazing thing, this world-beating super album that Terry Gavigan had produced, called Rock Snacks. There is something special, no matter what the fact it cost us 200 quid to put together this thing. I think everybody who was involved in this album will agree that it's just a wonderful feeling when you're a young lad and you're at the beginning of your career, if you have a career to speak of, to be able to get your name on a piece of vinyl. He managed to get this album in the shops, and I bought 6 of them straight away. So I think we were #1 in Whiteley's.
No matter what level bands play to, they will have fond memories that they will cherish forever.
By and large, musicians are a happy bunch, you know. They mightn't have much money, but they certainly, you know, they get on with each other.
I just got a buzz every time I went on the stage. I still do.
It's a massive part of my life. that I think has helped us through some very difficult times.
You get in each other's nerves and you have some good laughs and basically sort of enjoying yourself, and if you don't enjoy it, you shouldn't do it.
Well, it was just our life. It was like everything about it. We were just in it from the beginning.
Enjoy yourself, that's what it's about. If you don't enjoy it, you waste your time.